Will Baghdad fall? Let's play hardball. Good evening, I'm Chris Matthews in Washington. Let me start with the possible collapse of Baghdad. Collapse. How many times have we heard that word in history? The collapse of the Chinese nationalists in the face of Mao Zedong's advancing Red Army. The collapse of the Soviet Union in the early 1990s. How many times have we seen the armored personnel carriers racing down the streets of a capital, men waving and firing their weapons into the air, the hotels and other symbols of the status quo suddenly thrown open to the bearded, triumphant forces in from the countryside? Is this the immediate future of Baghdad? Is this the picture we are soon to see on our American TV screens, the blatant contradiction of what we see with our stunned eyes and what we were told was going to be the enduring reality between the ways are in Iraq and our self-taught notions of nation building? Whatever gave some people the idea we Americans could confect a country over there to our specifications and that we could convert a Ba'athist dictatorship into a secular democracy. Didn't the gruesome hanging of Saddam Hussein by his Shiite conquerors offer advanced warning that this new governing order over there we've given power to in Baghdad is less intent on healing sectarian wounds between Shia and Sunni than an exacting sectarian revenge? So here we are, watching the Sunnis head toward Baghdad, the Shia, backed by Iran, prepare to hold them off. The President of the United States reviews options, none of which will correct that initial mistake of U.S. getting into this jamboree from hell. Bobby Ghosh is the international editor of Time magazine. He's soon to be the managing editor of Quartz. And Paul Eaton is a retired Army general and a senior advisor at the National Security Network. Well, today, Iraq's most senior Shiite cleric told his followers to take up arms in order to defend their country against the onslaught of a powerful Sunni militant group. That group, ISIS, has taken over several major cities and has vowed to march on Baghdad. In Washington, some powerful voices on the right are now urging military action, including Senators John McCain and Lindsey Graham. Well, today the president said he was considering his options. He also had a pointed message for Prime Minister Maliki of Iraq. The United States will help, but ultimately it's up to the Iraqis to solve their own problems. Let's watch.
We will not be sending U.S. troops back into combat in Iraq, but I have asked my national security team to prepare a range of other options that could help support Iraq security forces. And any action that we may take to provide assistance to Iraqi security forces has to be joined by a serious and sincere effort by Iraq's leaders to set aside sectarian differences, to promote stability, and account for the legitimate interests of all of Iraq's communities. We can't do it for them. And in the absence of this type of political effort, short-term military action, including any assistance we might provide, won't succeed.
We can't do it for them. That statement reminded me of another U.S. president speaking to another world leader. Here was President John F. Kennedy in September of 1963, asked about Vietnam in an interview with Walter Cronkite. Let's watch.
In the final analysis, it's their war. They're the ones who have to win it or lose it. We can help them. We can give them equipment. We can send our men out there as advisors, but they have to win it, the people of Vietnam, against the communists. We're prepared to continue to assist them. But I don't think that the war can be won unless the people support the effort. And in my opinion, in the last 2 months, the government has gotten out of touch with the people.
Bobby Ghosh, I think that resonates with what we just heard President Obama say to Maliki. Your thoughts about the situation right now? I'll get to the general in a second. Same question to both of you. What's it look like on the war front right now in the outskirts of Baghdad?
Well, Chris, you have to think that Baghdad won't fall, although a week ago I would have said Mosul wouldn't fall. But you'd have to think that the Iraqi capital, with a large Shiite population, with presumably the best units of the Iraqi military, and with Shiite militias arming again, are going to put up a stronger fight against ISIS than Mosul did, or Beiji, or Tikrit, which were all predominantly Sunni towns. That being said, this is a war that the Iraqis have to win on the ground. It's all very well well for us now to say to Maliki, you should govern better, but that's a problem for next week, next month, if he can survive that long. Right now, for the next 48 hours, for the next 7 days, he has to protect his capital, and he has to his army has to take back the cities that they have lost. If he can't do that, then no amount of assistance we can provide from here is going to change the dynamics on the ground. That's my...
Bobby, unfortunately, that puts us in a situation for the next week of being on the same side as the Iranian Revolutionary Guard.
As well
we are
as,
basically
as well
in military
as
bed now. And well, yeah. So we've joined this side we've been fighting for this week, you say?
Well, I don't think we can join this fight. I think that's the fight the Iraqis have to fight and win. There's not a whole lot that we can do. There's been all this loose talk of providing air security and drones, but that's just not going to happen. Air security and drones, as I'm sure the general will say, requires a level of ground intelligence that we don't have, and we cannot trust the Iraqi military or the Iraqi government to provide that kind of intelligence. So there's nothing at the moment militarily the United States can do. The Iraqis have to win this one by themselves, and politically it's important as well for the rest of Iraq to see that their army is standing up to these people. It won't do to have a foreign boots on the ground, whether they're Iranian boots or American boots, to protect the capital of Iraq.
Well, apparently, General, we have a situation where we have the Iranian Revolutionary Guard coming to the assistance, 2 battalions coming to the assistance of this home guard there. And my question to you is, how's it look militarily? And should we even be thinking about what John McCain's saying today? By the way, Senator McCain just said he wants pilots. And here it is. On today, Senator McCain insisted the war in Iraq had been won. The country was pacified and stable, he said, and all was good until President Obama withdrew the troops. Let's watch him here. But he goes further later today.
The fact is, we had the conflict won. The surge had succeeded, and then the decision was made by the Obama administration to not have a residual force in Iraq.
What about going in the first place? And what about churning the hate? What about taking the Sunnis out of leadership positions in 2003? What about the fact that there might have been some parts of this that are on the previous administration that could be relitigated as well?
Well, what about the fact that we had it won? What about the fact that people like me said we've got to fire Rumsfeld, we've got to get the surge going? Yes, we did, finally. And what about the fact that General Petraeus had the conflict won thanks to the surge?
I don't know what victory means anymore in that kind of a situation. I mean, there's snapshot victories, and then the next day some new group takes over.
Military, we came to a draw, but there has been a slow train wreck going on politically that has set the stage for where we are right now. So we may have fought to a draw, as Senator McCain said, militarily, but we had not solved the political problem that has endured and has created the mess that we're in right now. And by the way, I don't think Baghdad is going to fall. The units are coming up. They're predominantly Shia. They're going to hold. Maliki's going to turn it over to a competent general, and we're going to harden the defense of Baghdad. Once he's got a reasonably strong defense of Baghdad, at that point, you leave the fortress and you take back the terrain that you've lost. But the ISIS, these guys are coming into territory that is increasingly unfriendly to them. So
unfriendly to the government.
Unfriendly to, no, they're coming into, coming out of the Sunni Triangle, where they've got a base of support, where they've got people who are either friendly or at least going to turn a blind eye. But as they come into the Shia-controlled areas, or where we've got more Shia population, it's going to get tougher for the ISIS to prosecute. And I expect that we'll see a turn in the combat here to Maliki.
What do you make of John McCain saying we need air power to get in there right now? Start shooting at the insurgents. Start shooting at ISIS on behalf of the government in Baghdad.
Target-level detail intelligence is difficult to come by in the best of conditions. ISIS...
Translate that to civilian talk.
Okay.
Meaning these are not advancing columns. This is not like in
Correct.
World War II where you have units, moving forward along a roadway.
Correct. They're going to have to find the targets. But the problem with the ISIS and insurgents is that they hug the population.
Yeah.
So the bombs don't discriminate when you've got a lot of people in a tight space, not all of whom are enemy people. So air power is an issue. If we do military options, the president has a profound amount of military talent in the United States that can stiffen the spine of the Iraqi forces.
Bobby, this gets back to the central question: what are we in this war for? If it is a civil war between Sunni and Shia, and it's become that, it looks like it's become that. Maybe it shouldn't be, but this ISIS group has ginned it up this way now. If they're able to claim effectively the Sunni territory, as the general said, but are meeting resistance going into the Shia area, it begins to look like a divided geography. And why are we taking one geographic half of that country and killing people on the other side? Because we've somehow politically cut a deal with Maliki, who has refused to play our politics, which is inclusion politics. You know, why are we killing anybody? What moral right do we have at this point to go in there and kill people? That's my old question, the moral question. What are we doing on international television for 10, 12 years now, killing Arabs? That's what we do.
It's especially hard if, as the general say, these guys hug the population. It's one thing if you're facing an open battle against a terrorist group that has enormous amounts of civilian blood on their hands that are quite plainly identifiable as bad guys. But the trouble is that that's not how they operate. As you rightly said, they do not march down a single file on a highway as if this was the Second World War. They are scattered. In fact, if they did operate like that, they wouldn't have been this successful. Even the Iraqi army, as weak as it is, would have been able to pick them off if they were marching down a column. The fact that they can disappear, blend into a crowd, the fact that they know the terrain very well. These are mostly Iraqi fighters, not foreigners. That's the reason why they've succeeded, and that's the reason why simple solutions like the one that Senator McCain is suggesting are not going to work.
General, here's my view about this thing generally. Our military is unbelievable. They're a volunteer army. They do what they're ordered to do within moral grounds. They are incredibly courageous, and they're in the worst places in the world, like these outposts in Afghanistan and in all these different places they've been in Iraq. So that, to me, my wife said this, Kathleen said to me a while ago, she said that puts more and more onus on the political leaders to get it right. If these guys are going to fight a good fight, make sure they're fighting the right fight. And my question to you is, did it ever make sense to you going into Iraq? What are we doing in there?
I was a Major General when...
We overthrew a government.
Indeed. I was a Major General watching this unfold. I was not a part of the invasion force. And I heard all of our leadership tell us that, you know, when Secretary Powell said, you know, smoking...
nuclear weapon.
Yeah. That, I said, all right, perhaps we have a problem here. But it is proven to be utterly disastrous.
And also that was confected for the European allies. They admitted that.
And executed badly at the senior leadership level. So this has been a disaster from the very beginning.
That's what I think. Well, I'm looking at the politics. I thank you for your service, General, and thank you for all the military people watching. Anyway, Major Paul Eaton, and thank you, Bobby Ghosh, for the regional look at this thing. Coming up, Americans overwhelmingly say the war in Iraq wasn't worth it from the beginning. So what makes the hawks now think there's an appetite for more military action? People like John McCain saying send in the fighter pilots and the bombers. Plus, how far will Chris Christie go to try to make the world look